Hi.
Do you think Americans pay enough attention to climate change?
This is a controversial topic that probably rocks back and forth in our minds, seeing as America is one of the world's superpowers today. As such, determining if they do indeed pay enough attention to perhaps the biggest global crisis in our modern times is important for the preservation of Earth and humanity's survival. The US has produced more greenhouse gas emissions than any other country in the last 250 years. This fact alone is self-explanatory of their insane contribution to global warming. And actually less than 1% of cars on America's roads are electric. The US actually boasts 15.52 tons of carbon dioxide emissions per capita. Don't you think with all that money, they would have ensured more electric vehicles are manufactured and deployed? Do you think that this shows that climate change is one of the global issues under their surveillance? In fact, only 8 states in the US have banned single-use plastic bags. Meanwhile, 18 states actually have laws preventing future plastic bans. Essentially, they're banning a ban. They are enforcing rules to hinder progress. This, to me, is a bit nonsensical. And it goes without saying that they aren't paying enough attention to climate change. Actually, the US only recycles roughly 32% of their trash, with 54% of its nationals' waste being sent to landfill. The US makes up 4% of the world's population, but produces 12% of its trash. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to deduce that these numbers don't add up. From these 4 facts I've just mentioned, we can see America's complacency about climate change affects the whole world. Humanity is largely responsible for climate change, and Americans are at the forefront of belief that something needs to be done to fix this global crisis. First and foremost, there's a debate over if there's a problem to begin with. Several issues that polarizes Americans have some level of common understanding about societal ill, be it gun deaths, poverty, or unplanned pregnancies. Even if there is a strong divisions about how the government should be involved in fixing it. In the case of climate change, debates over policy have long been secondary to the basic science of the problem. Second is the invisibility of climate change and the uncertainty in attributing specific events and weather patterns to the broader phenomenon. Climate change activists in the US have worried that many individuals viewed global warming as a future issue, not a current one, with the impacts generally felt in furthest corners of the globe, not close to home. When asked to choose, most Americans say stricter environmental regulations are worthwhile and advantageous, while others house the uneducated opinion that it's just one of 1,000 other issues that are out there. Such laws and regulations run the risk of erecting unemployment, which in turn could hurt America's powerful economy. This reveals that a majority of the community are aware of the issue of climate change. However, the government has decided to prioritize maintaining America as a global superpower instead of environmental preservation, which could yield worldwide benefits for the future of our planet and society. There has been various centralized questions from the get-go. The US's position on climate is driven by economic issues, and it still is today. From the outset, the refusal of the United States to engage is linked to the fact that this country is more than any other dependent on fossil fuels. Though we're starting to feel the effects of climate change, those effects are not dramatic enough on a day-to-day basis to convince the majority of Americans that climate change should be taken seriously. Some individuals who don't believe that human-caused climate change is alerting the world for the worst might feel like this environmental catastrophe is just hype. If the problem wasn't that pressing, why would we be putting in heaps of time and efforts to tackle it? But fortunately, for the rest of us, some Americans are starting to take notice of the more extreme weather events like hurricanes and wildfires, working havoc across the country.